Hi there everyone, welcome back to another episode of Perfect Pairings with Jaycee. Today we're taking a sentimental journey with Altenew's Timeless Sentiments 2 die set. This set isn't just about crafting, it's about connecting with the heart of our artistry. We'll pair these elegant dies with some of our cherished stamp sets, vintage treasures from the dawn of Altenew's 10-year story. My card making journey started in December 2015. That's when I went to a big box store to pick up some stamps and cardstock for the first time for thank you cards. I tried memory keeping and later visited card making and stamping yet again. One of the first stamp sets I purchased was Perfectly Perfect. This stamp set is sentimental to me because it was one of the first sets I colored with alcohol-based markers, and it was also the subject of my very first YouTube video on my personal channel. So to me, this stamp set is the catalyst of my creative involvement with Altenew, YouTube, and Instagram. It has helped me connect with you all, and I got to share my love for floral coloring long before I started drawing inspiration from my own garden. After all these years, these stamp sets still create beautiful fine lines. Now, coloring does not take nearly as long as it used to, as I've had a lot of practice with Altenew's artist markers. I'll be grabbing a variety of Altenew artist markers, and if you're curious about them, I'll have them linked in the description box. I'm starting with my darkest artist marker in my palette like I always have. I have already stamped the outlines in permanent black crisp ink. I've had this ink pad since I've started stamping, and I'm still using my very first re-inker. I mentioned earlier I had a dream of these color palettes when crafting. Now that I have my very own and very small home garden, I draw inspiration and color palettes from my collection all the time. I'm coloring these open blooms like the Coco Loco Floribunda roses I have. The color is absolutely breathtaking in real life. They're like a light mocha mauve lavender mix, and each bloom is different, as if they know to outshine their flower neighbor. I'm mixing various shades of Woodland Escape colors with dried petal to get that touch of lavender and pink intermingled with the mocha base. I also added warm gray artist markers to the center, nothing too exact. Warm gray was my go-to leaf palette for a long time. I got stuck on what the Altenew design team was making back in the day, and I found it to be part of my comfortable palette. Nowadays, I love incorporating brighter leaves, red undertones even, like roses. I was under the impression that in order to mute back leaves, you had to make them grayscale, when in reality, other techniques like decreasing the color value range give you the same muted result, so that the flowers can really push through. I'm using a mix of Woodland Garden and Firewood Garden greens to create some contrast, but not as much as in the flowers, to help support them and not take them over visually. I also remember being a little reluctant to buy a die cutting machine, and seriously what a mistake that was for me to wait, because then I had to go back to all the stamp sets I love and get their coordinating dies. Fussy cutting is one thing, but the professional and crisp cuts you get from a good die cutting machine really make your card stand out. So aside from Perfectly Perfect being my first stamp set, it was also one of my first die sets. Speaking of die sets, here's the main focus of this video today: Timeless Sentiments 2 die set. I stacked 3 white layers and 1 black layer to get this dimensional sentiment that instantly adds focus to your card. I remember seeing the Altenew design team's cards way back in the day for Mega Alphabet die set and being immediately drawn to Therese, May's, Aga's samples, particularly the ones made by framing the large letter with flowers. In this card, I want to do the same thing by framing the Have a Good Day sentiment with my Perfectly Perfect Coco Loco flowers. My trick when making arrangements like this is to start with your focal flowers and fill in your group with the leaves, making sure not to cover too much of the sentiment. And if you've been with me on the Perfect Pairing series for a while or follow me on my own platforms, you know that jet black ink spray is my ultimate, like it's all I use for black splatter. And yes, this is still my original bottle from the beginning. And in addition to jet black ink spray, I've expanded my enamel dot collection to anchor the array of dots. I'm using Forest Trail enamel dots to match the palette of my foliage. Here's my card featuring Perfectly Perfect and Timeless Sentiments 2 die sets, as well as other longtime favorites of mine. I mean, at this point, they're not just favorites, they're indispensable crafting tools for me since I reach for them like die cutting machines or a paper trimmer. I don't know what I would do without the stamp wheel. It has changed the way I craft, and after much practice with the flip plate and the sticky mat grid, I think that everyone should make the investment for one. And Altenew keeps expanding the tools that accompany the stamp wheel, like the SlimGrip. I'm a methodical crafter. I take into consideration a lot of measurements when crafting for symmetry or geometric composition. It's what brings me joy and makes sense in my little brain. So now there's no guesswork when centering a panel of cardstock on the stamp wheel for when you want to do a symmetrical or rotational arrangement. I'm starting with Blush Crafting Necessities solid cardstock in the center of the stamp wheel. I'm using the Floral Henna stamp set to repeat stamp on this panel. And for a slight tone-on-tone look, I'm using Mauve Fresh Dye Ink, one of my new favorite colors from Altenew's vast line of colors. After getting 2 images stamped on this panel, I'll grab a second blush panel and stamp more with Mauve. Hennah Elements stamp and die set was also one of my very first purchases from Altenew. I loved the celebration of henna and Mendi art in both of these sets, and I thought it truly represented the diversity of Altenew's owners, team members, and creative team. So for me, I felt the need to support the shop because of the unique design and expansive illustration style. I stamped a few of the images from Hennah Elements, and I'll use the coordinating die to cut out the images. On a panel of white cardstock, I'll center the Floral Henna panel. And off camera, I die cut the word Smile from blush cardstock and stacked 2 layers on top of white cardstock for the offset layer. I'll frame and arrange the Hennah Elements images around the smile sentiment. After foam mounting some die cut pieces and the sentiment die cut, I wanted to add splatter again. I used an acrylic block and some of the ink from the ink pad to add a faint array of splatter. Then I used dry Petals enamel dots to anchor the fine spread of dots. I also used crystal clear enamel dots closer to the sentiment to add a touch more shine to this card. So in April 2024, we are celebrating Altenew's 10th anniversary by showcasing some of our older favorites. For me, it's not just about what I like, because I've loved so many releases, but also the sentimental aspect of designing. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And in some ways, I've adapted this famous Maya Angelou quote around this card making tutorial geared toward the nostalgic value of just 2 stamp sets I showed today. So happy 10th anniversary Altenew, and thanks so much to all of you watching. I'll catch you in another card making video.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.